Bron Breakker gets suspended for attacking Adam Pearce. Raw highlights, January 13, 2026. Wait, what? Bron Breakker just threw away his entire career in the most devastating 15 seconds of Raw we've ever seen. A young superstar with unlimited potential, a future main eventer, a generational talent, just completely imploded on live television. This is absolutely inexcusable, and honestly, it's infuriating to watch someone with so much promise just throw it all away. Stay with me because what went down is going to shock you, and we need to talk about whether WWE even made the right call here. So here's what happened, and I want you to think about this carefully. On January 13, 2026, WWE Monday Night Raw delivered one of the most controversial moments of the entire year. Bron Breakker, the young superstar who everybody believed was destined for the main event scene, completely lost his mind backstage. The incident wasn't just some minor altercation, this was a full-on attack against Adam Pearce, one of WWE's senior officials. And the consequences? Immediate suspension. But was it deserved? That's what we're diving into today. Let me paint you the picture of what led to this absolute meltdown. Earlier in the week, Braun had been feuding with one of the top competitors on the roster. The tension was building. The frustration was mounting. Every interaction between these two superstars was dripping with hostile energy, and fans were eating it up. This was the kind of storyline that could have elevated Braun to the next level. But something changed. Something shifted in his mentality. On Monday Night Raw, a decision was made that nobody expected. It involved Braun's match, his position on the card, and frankly, it felt like a screw job. Whether it actually was or wasn't isn't really the point. What matters is that Braun believed he got cheated. And that belief? That's what triggered everything. After the decision was announced, cameras caught Braun backstage, and you could see it immediately. His face turned red. His jaw clenched. His fists were trembling. This wasn't just normal frustration, this was genuine, unfiltered rage building up. You could feel the tension through the television screen. Veteran wrestlers could see it coming from a mile away. Everyone in that backstage area probably knew something bad was about to happen. Then it happened. Adam Pearce, the official who was involved in the decision, confronted Braun. What started as a conversation escalated faster than anyone could have predicted. Words were exchanged. Accusations were thrown. Braun's voice was getting louder and louder, and his body language became increasingly aggressive. Pearce, to his credit, stood his ground. He tried to reason with the young superstar. He tried to explain the reasoning behind the decision, but Braun wasn't hearing it. In a moment of absolute chaos, Braun snapped. He didn't just push Pearce, he attacked him. Full contact. No hesitation. Security had to jump in immediately, separating them, but the damage was already done. The incident had already happened, and everyone watching knew that this was a career-altering moment for Bron Breakker. Here's where it gets really interesting, and I want to know your opinion on this in the comments. Do you think WWE was right to suspend him immediately? Because here's the thing, on one hand, you cannot have superstars physically attacking WWE officials. That's a line that gets crossed, and there have to be consequences. The rules exist for a reason. You can't have an environment where talent thinks they can just assault whoever they want whenever they're upset. That's chaos. That's unprofessional. That's grounds for immediate discipline. But on the other hand, and hear me out, Braun is young. He's hungry. He's passionate about his craft. Maybe what he needed wasn't suspension. Maybe what he needed was someone to sit down with him, talk to him, and redirect that passion and intensity into something productive. Maybe he needed guidance instead of punishment. Maybe this was a moment that could have been handled differently. WWE's official statement came down hard. Bron Breakker was suspended indefinitely, effective immediately. He was pulled from all televised events. His merchandise went quiet. His social media went dark. It was like the company had erased him from existence overnight. And you know what? That's actually pretty serious. Indefinite suspension is no joke. The wrestling community absolutely exploded over this decision. Social media was going absolutely crazy. Fans were divided. Some people said Braun deserved it. Others said he was being unfairly punished. Wrestlers were taking sides. Analysts were debating whether this was the right move. The incident dominated every wrestling conversation for days afterward, and honestly, it still is. What really gets me, though, is thinking about the trajectory Braun was on before this happened. This kid had won championships. He'd impressed management. He was being groomed for greatness. He had the look, the athleticism, the intensity, and the charisma. Everything was aligning for him to become a legitimate main event player. And then one single moment of lost control potentially derailed everything he built. Now, I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want you to answer this in the comments because I'm curious. Do you think Bron Breakker will come back from this suspension stronger, more focused, and ready to prove people wrong? Or do you think this is the beginning of the end for his push? Because honestly, that question is going to define his career for the next few years. The timing of this is also absolutely terrible, you know? Braun was positioned perfectly for some major opportunities coming up. There were talks of big matches. There was momentum. And now it's all on hold. Now he's got to sit at home and think about what he did. Now he's got to watch other superstars get opportunities that could have been his. That's got to be eating him alive internally. Let me break down what happens next, because the suspension isn't just about sitting at home. This affects everything. It affects his paycheck. It affects his placement on the card when he returns. It affects how management perceives him moving forward. It affects fan perception. Once you're labeled as someone who can't control themselves, people remember that. They're hesitant to trust you with major opportunities. You've got to prove yourself all over again. The craziest part about all of this is that Adam Pearce, the guy who got attacked, has actually been really fair and professional throughout his entire career. He's not a heel authority figure, he's a legitimate, respected official who generally makes good decisions. So when Braun attacked him, it wasn't like he was attacking some cartoonish villain. He was attacking someone who was just doing their job. Here's what I think could have prevented this entire situation: communication. Better communication between management and talent about decisions, about reasoning, about opportunities. If Braun had understood why that decision was made, if he'd had a chance to discuss his position and his goals, maybe things would have gone differently. Maybe he wouldn't have exploded. Maybe this whole thing could have been handled backstage without it becoming public drama. But that's in the past now. What matters is what happens next. Braun's going to have to sit with this. He's going to have to reflect on his behavior. He's going to have to figure out what his future looks like in WWE. And eventually, when he comes back, and I do think he'll come back, he's going to have to prove that he's learned from this mistake. The wrestling world is watching. The fans are watching. WWE management is definitely watching. One moment of rage has suddenly made everything uncertain for Bron Breakker. And that's the scary part about this industry, right? One bad decision, one moment of lost control, and everything can change. So here's my final question for you before you leave this video: if you were in WWE management, what would you do with Bron Breakker when his suspension ends? Would you give him another chance immediately? Would you make him work his way back up? Would you strip away some of his opportunities as punishment? What's the fair play here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let me know where you stand on this entire situation. Do you think Braun got what he deserved, or do you think WWE overreacted? Is this going to define his career, or is he going to come back stronger than ever? These are the questions that matter, and I want to hear what you think. This is the kind of moment that defines careers, folks. This is the kind of moment that people remember forever. And we're all watching to see if Bron Breakker can bounce back from this, or if this is the moment his trajectory changed forever. Make sure you're subscribed to Ring Rumble, because we're going to keep following this story as it develops. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the updates. And remember, share this video with someone who's been following Braun's career, because they need to see this breakdown. The wrestling world has changed. Everything just got a whole lot more complicated for Bron Breakker. And we're all waiting to see what happens next.